My fingers trembled as I typed the message. Della's hospital bill is due. $15,000. Please. I stared at the screen, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My thumb hovered over the send button, while my eyes drifted to the hospital bed where my daughter lay sleeping. Her chestnut hair spread across the pillow like silk threads. She looked so small, so fragile with that IV drip attached to her tiny arm. I'm Colin, just an Omega who'd been raising his daughter alone for 4 years, scraping by on minimum wage jobs and government assistance that barely covered rent, let alone medical bills. Today was the first time I was reaching out to them, the 4 alphas who had claimed me one desperate night and then vanished before sunrise. Cade, Shane, Troy, and Brock. Ruthless businessmen, powerful, dangerous, men who probably didn't even remember my name. That night 4 years ago, my first heat had hit unexpectedly, while I was working a catering event at an elite business conference. I'd stumbled into a private suite, desperately seeking somewhere quiet to hide until I could call for help. Instead, I found them, 4 alphas whose scents had wrapped around me like a drug, pulling me under. They'd claimed me together, their marks burning into my skin, their voices promising things I'd wanted so badly to believe. But when I woke up the next morning, I was alone. No note, no contact information, nothing but the fading scent of their cologne and the ache in my body. I never thought I'd contact them again. I'd convinced myself that Della and I were fine on our own, but leukemia doesn't care about pride or independence. My baby girl was dying and I was out of options. I pressed send. The response came within seconds. My phone buzzed and I nearly dropped it. Kate's name flashed on screen. Who is this? My stomach dropped. Of course they didn't have my number saved. I was probably just one of many Omegas they'd spent the night with. Another message. Omega, identify yourself. That was Shane, always so formal, so controlled. Then Troy. What daughter? And finally Brock, characteristically brief. Address. Now, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely type out the hospital's address. I'd hoped maybe they'd just wire the money and forget about it. Let me disappear back into obscurity. But these were alphas who were used to getting answers, used to being in control of every situation. They were coming here. They were coming for me. Della stirred slightly in her sleep, her small hand curling around the edge of her blanket. Leukemia had stolen so much from her, her energy, her childhood, the healthy pink glow that should have colored her cheeks. But she still smiled whenever I sat beside her bed, still told me stories about the cartoons she watched on the small television mounted on the wall. She looked exactly like Troy with that sharp jawline and those dark curls, though she had my gray eyes. A nurse appeared in the doorway, her expression professionally neutral but her eyes sympathetic. Mr. Colin? There are some men here asking for you. 4 of them. They're at reception. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They're quite intense. I stood up, my worn cardigan suddenly feeling too thin, too shabby for whatever was about to happen. My reflection in the window showed exactly what I was. A tired Omega in secondhand clothes, dark circles under his eyes from too many sleepless nights, hair that needed cutting, shoes with soles worn nearly through. What would they see when they looked at me now? Would they even recognize me? The walk to reception felt like walking to my execution. Each step echoed in the sterile hallway, and my Omega instincts were screaming at me to run, to hide, to protect myself from the alphas who were waiting. But I couldn't run. Not anymore. Della needed me to be brave. And then I saw them. Cade stood at the center, tall and imposing in a black suit that probably cost more than my annual salary. His dark hair was slicked back, revealing those cold, calculating eyes that had haunted my dreams for 4 years. Shane was beside him, blonde hair perfectly styled, ice blue eyes already assessing me with that analytical gaze that made me feel like he could see straight through to my bones. Troy stood to the left, dark curls artfully messy, his commanding presence making nurses and visitors unconsciously step back. And Brock, broad-shouldered, quiet, but radiating a barely controlled rage that made the air around him feel electric. They all turned to look at me simultaneously and I felt the weight of their combined attention like a physical force. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The busy hospital reception faded into background noise as we stared at each other across the divide of 4 years and 1,000 unspoken words. Cade spoke first, his voice low and deadly calm. "You have 10 seconds to explain why you mentioned a daughter, Colin, and why you texted all 4 of us." He remembered my name. That small detail shouldn't have mattered, but it sent an unexpected flutter through my chest. I took a breath, forcing myself to meet his gaze even though my omega instincts were begging me to lower my eyes in submission. "Because Della," my voice cracked and I had to swallow hard before continuing. "She belongs to all of you." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched their reactions in slow motion. Cade's jaw tightening, Shane's eyes widening fractionally, Troy's hands clenching into fists at his sides, Brock's entire body going rigid. Around us, the hospital continued its normal rhythm. But in our small bubble of space, time seemed to have stopped entirely. Shane was the first to move, taking a single step forward. "Explain." Now, I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the hospital's climate control. That night, when we were together, my heat triggered something. 9 months later, I had Della. She's 4 years old now and she's sick. Really sick. I need help with her medical bills. And you 4 are the only ones. Where is she?" Troy interrupted, his voice rough with an emotion I couldn't identify. "Room 304. But she's sleeping and I don't want. Take us to her." Cade's words weren't a request. They were a command, delivered with all the alpha authority that had made him successful in the ruthless business world. I wanted to argue, to protect Della from this sudden invasion of powerful alphas who might disrupt her fragile stability. But what right did I have to keep them away anymore? I'd already made that choice 4 years ago. And look where it had gotten us. "Follow me," I whispered, and led them toward the room where our daughter lay sleeping, completely unaware that her entire world was about to change. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor was suffocating. 4 alphas crowded into the small space with me, their combined scents creating an overwhelming cocktail that made my head spin. Nobody spoke, but I could feel their eyes on me, judging, questioning, accusing. My reflection in the polished elevator doors showed how small I looked compared to them, how insignificant. When the doors opened, I led them down the pediatric oncology hallway, past colorful murals that were meant to cheer up sick children but only reminded me of everything Della was missing. Other parents looked up as we passed, their expressions curious at the sight of 4 powerful businessmen in expensive suits walking through a children's hospital wing. I stopped outside room 304, my hand on the door handle. "Please be quiet. She tires easily, and the last round of treatment was particularly hard on her." Nobody responded, but I felt the shift in their energy, anticipation mixed with something that might have been fear. I pushed open the door. Della was exactly as I'd left her, curled on her side with Mr. Hoppy, the stuffed rabbit I'd given her for her 3rd birthday, tucked under her chin. The monitors beeped steadily, tracking her heart rate and oxygen levels. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, showing the delicate blue veins underneath. She'd lost most of her hair during the first round of chemotherapy, but some was growing back now, soft, dark curls that reminded me painfully of Troy. I heard someone's sharp intake of breath behind me. When I turned, all 4 alphas had frozen in the doorway, staring at the small figure in the hospital bed as if she were a ghost. Troy moved first, crossing the room with slow, deliberate steps as though afraid any sudden movement might shatter the moment. He stopped beside the bed, his tall frame seeming even larger next to Della's small form. His hand reached out, trembling before his fingers gently touched one of her curls. "She has my hair," he whispered, his voice breaking on the last word. "My eyes. My—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Brock approached next, his attention fixed on the IV line in Della's arm, the medical equipment surrounding her bed. His jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jumping. "What kind of leukemia?" "Acute lymphoblastic," I answered quietly. "She was diagnosed 6 months ago. The first round of chemotherapy helped. But she needs more treatment, and my insurance doesn't cover." I couldn't finish that sentence either. Shane stayed near the door, arms crossed over his chest, but his usual cold composure had cracked. His eyes were fixed on Della's face, and I watched something that looked like anguish flicker across his face before he locked it down again. "Why didn't you tell us?" 4 years, Colin. 4 years you kept her existence a secret. The accusation in his voice stung, but it was nothing compared to the guilt I'd been carrying. I woke up alone that morning. No note, no phone number, nothing. What was I supposed to do? Track down 4 wealthy alphas and tell them that the Omega from their one-night stand was pregnant? You think they would have believed me? You think they would have cared? We would have cared. Katie's voice cut through the room like a blade. He'd moved to stand at the foot of Della's bed, his hands gripping the metal railing so tightly his knuckles had turned white. We would have been there. For both of you. I laughed, a bitter sound that held no humor. Really? Then where were you that morning? Where were you when I spent 3 days in preheat confusion wondering if I'd imagined everything? Where were you when I took that pregnancy test and realized my entire life was about to change? We left because we thought we were protecting you, Brock said, his voice low and rough. The 4 of us together, what we did, it's not normal. Colin, Omegas don't bond with multiple alphas. It doesn't work that way. We thought if we stayed, we'd ruin you. You ruined me anyway. The words came out before I could stop them, raw and honest. Every single day, for 4 years, I've wondered if I made the right choice not trying to find you. Every time Della asked about her father, I had to lie because I didn't even know which one of you she came from. And now, my voice cracked. Now she's dying and I'm desperate enough to beg. Shane flinched as if I'd struck him. Troy's hand, still resting on Della's hair, trembled. Brock's expression shuddered completely, walls going up. But Cade's eyes blazed with something fierce and possessive. She's not dying. His voice held absolute certainty. I don't care what it costs or what strings I have to pull. Della will get the best treatment available. The best doctors, the best facility, everything she needs. We should move her, Shane added, his analytical mind already working through logistics. Johns Hopkins has the top pediatric oncology program in the country. I'll make the calls tonight. I'll handle her medical team, Troy said, finally pulling his eyes away from Della to look at me. Whatever specialist she needs, whatever treatments show the most promise. Money is not an object. And you, Brock said, his gaze intense as it locked on mine, need to stop carrying this alone. We're here now. We're not leaving again. I wanted to believe them. God, I wanted to believe them. So badly it hurt. But I'd spent 4 years building walls around my heart, protecting myself from the pain of their absence. This isn't some project you can throw money at and fix. This is my daughter's life. Our daughter's life. I won't let you sweep in, play hero for a few weeks and then disappear when it gets too difficult. Then test us, Kay challenged, moving around the bed to stand directly in front of me. He was close enough that I could smell his scent, cedar and smoke, achingly familiar. We'll prove it to you. We'll prove we're not going anywhere. Before I could respond, Della stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and still heavy with sleep. When she saw the strangers in her room, she instinctively reached for me. Daddy? I was at her side immediately, taking her small hand in mine. I'm here, sweetheart. These are some friends of Daddy's. They wanted to meet you. Her gray eyes, my eyes, studied each of the alphas with surprising clarity for a 4-year-old who'd just woken up. You're really tall, she said to Brock. Then to Troy, you have curly hair like me. Shane's ice blue eyes made her giggle. You look like a prince from my storybook. But it was Cade who knelt down beside her bed, bringing himself to her eye level. Hello, Della. My name is Cade. Your daddy tells me you've been very brave. She nodded seriously. The medicine makes me sleepy. But Daddy says I have to be strong. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Sometimes it hurts though. I watched something crack in Cade's carefully controlled expression. I know, sweetheart. But we're going to make sure you feel better soon. I promise. Della smiled at him. That innocent trust that children have before the world teaches them to be cautious. Okay? I believe you. And watching these 4 powerful alphas stand around my daughter's hospital bed, seeing the fierce protectiveness already forming in their eyes, I realized that whether I was ready or not, everything had just changed irrevocably. True to their word, things moved with terrifying speed. Within 24 hours, Della had been transferred to a private suite that looked more like a luxury hotel room than a hospital. The walls were painted soft lavender, her favorite color. Somehow Kate had found that out, and there were actual windows, with natural light instead of the fluorescent glare of the standard rooms. Toys and books appeared as if by magic, filling the previously sterile space with color and life. Dr. Morrison, one of the country's leading pediatric oncologists, had flown in from Boston specifically to consult on Della's case. I sat in on the meeting, trying to follow the medical terminology while the four alphas asked questions that revealed they'd spent the night researching every aspect of childhood leukemia. Shane had a tablet filled with notes about experimental treatments. Troy questioned the drug protocols with surprising medical knowledge. Brock wanted to know about pain management and quality of life. And Cade asked about success rates, survival statistics, and wouldn't accept any answer that included the word hope instead of guarantees. I should have felt grateful. I should have been relieved that Della was finally getting the care she desperately needed. Instead, I felt like I was disappearing, becoming invisible in the shadow of their wealth and power and certainty. They made decisions about her treatment schedule, her meal plans, her physical therapy sessions. They consulted with doctors, spoke to insurance companies, arranged everything with the kind of efficiency that came from people accustomed to bending the world to their will. And me? I sat in the corner of Della's new room, watching it all happen, feeling more alone than I had when it was just the two of us against the world. On the third day, I tried to slip out. Della was napping after her morning treatment session, exhausted but stable. I thought if I could just get some air, some space to breathe without the overwhelming presence of four alphas constantly reminding me of my own inadequacy, maybe I could figure out how to navigate this new reality. I made it as far as the hallway before a hand caught my wrist. Running away? Cade's voice held an edge that made my spine stiffen. I jerked my arm free, surprised by my own anger. I'm getting coffee, is that allowed, or do I need permission for that too? His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've taken over everything. The words exploded out of me, 4 days of suppressed frustration finally breaking free. Her doctors, her treatment, her room, her schedule. You've made every decision about my daughter without even asking what I think. I'm her father, Cade. I've been her father for 4 years while you were nowhere to be found. Because you never told us she existed. His voice rose to match mine, and I was dimly aware of nurses glancing our way with concern. You made that choice, Colin. You decided we didn't deserve to know. So forgive us for trying to make up for lost time. Making up for lost time doesn't mean erasing me. Tears burned in my eyes, and I hated myself for them. I'm not some incompetent Omega who can't take care of his own child. I've been doing it alone because I had to. Because you left me no choice. We left you because we were trying to protect you from exactly this. Kay gestured between us, his own control clearly fraying, from the complications of being bonded to 4 alphas, from the gossip and judgment, from everything that comes with being connected to us. We thought we were doing the right thing. Well, you weren't. I was full on crying now, not caring who saw. You weren't there when I was alone and terrified. You weren't there for her first word, her first step, the first time she got sick and I stayed up all night afraid she'd stop breathing. You weren't there when the doctors told me she had cancer and I had to be strong while my whole world fell apart. You don't get to just show up now and pretend the last 4 years didn't happen. The hallway had gone quiet. I became aware of Shane, Troy, and Brock standing a few feet away, having apparently heard at least part of my breakdown. Shane's usually impassive face showed something that might have been shame. Troy looked devastated. Brock's hands were clenched at his sides, his jaw tight. You're right, Troy said quietly, stepping forward. You're absolutely right, Colin. We weren't there. We can't change that, and we can't make up for it no matter how much money we throw at the problem. He took another step closer, and I saw that his eyes were red-rimmed. But we're here now, and if you'll let us, we want to learn. Not take over, not erase you, but learn how to be what Della needs. What you both need. We've been handling this all wrong, Shane admitted, and the admission seemed to cost him. I've been treating this like a business problem that needs solving instead of a family that needs supporting. Brock moved to stand beside me, not touching, just present. I grew up without a father. He left when I was 3, and my mother raised me alone. I watched her struggle, watched her sacrifice everything, watched her become invisible because everyone only saw her failures instead of her strength. His voice was rough with emotion. I won't do that to you. I won't make you feel invisible. You're the person who kept Della alive, who loved her when we didn't even know she existed. That matters. You matter. Katie's expression had softened, some of the anger draining away to reveal something more vulnerable underneath. I'm not good at this. At sharing control, at trusting other people to make important decisions. It's why I'm successful in business and terrible at relationships. He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the usually perfect style. But I want to try. For Della. For you. I wiped at my tears with the back of my hand, feeling emotionally wrung out. I don't know how to do this. Any of this. Sharing her with you, trusting you, believing that you won't leave again when things get difficult. Then we figure it out together, Shane said simply. No more unilateral decisions. We talk to you first, include you in everything. Della is your daughter before she's ours. We won't forget that again. A nurse appeared, tactfully interrupting. I'm sorry to intrude, but Della is asking for her daddy. All 5 of us moved simultaneously, then stopped, the awkwardness of the situation suddenly apparent. Troy laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. This is going to take some getting used to. She means me, I said softly. She's asking for me. Then go, Kate said. And this time there was no command in it, just gentle encouragement. We'll be here when you're ready. I walked back to Della's room, my heart still racing from the confrontation but feeling lighter somehow. Maybe they were right. Maybe we could figure this out together. I wasn't ready to trust them completely, wasn't ready to let down all my walls. But for the first time since I'd sent that desperate text message, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely alone anymore. Della was awake, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. Daddy, where did you go? Just talking to the uncles, I said, settling into the chair beside her bed and taking her small hand. The lie tasted bitter, but I wasn't ready to explain the complicated truth yet. The tall uncles? She giggled. They're nice. Uncle Troy has the same curly hair as me. Yeah, baby. He does. She yawned, already getting sleepy again. Daddy? Are they going to stay? Or will they leave like the other grown-ups always do? The question pierced my heart. How many times had she watched social workers, nurses, and temporary helpers come and go from our lives? I think they're going to stay, sweetheart. Good, she mumbled, eyes already closing. I like them. As I watched her drift off to sleep, I heard quiet footsteps behind me. Without turning, I knew all 4 alphas were standing in the doorway, watching us, protecting us. Maybe, or maybe just trying to figure out where they fit in this fragile new family we were building from broken pieces and desperate hope. Della's chemotherapy sessions became our new reality, a rhythm of hope and exhaustion that dictated our days. I held her small hand through every treatment, watching her brave little face as the nurses inserted the IV. She'd close her eyes tight, grip my fingers until they went numb, but she never cried. Not once. My warrior daughter, fighting battles no 4-year-old should have to face. After each session she'd be wiped out for hours, her skin taking on that translucent quality that made my chest ache. But then, like magic, she'd bounce back with a smile that could light up the whole hospital wing. Today was one of those good days. She was showing me a stuffed wolf that had mysteriously appeared on her bed that morning. Look what Uncle Troy gave me. Her excitement was infectious despite the fatigue pulling at her features. He said wolves are loyal and they protect their pack. Am I in a pack, Daddy? Uncle. The word twisted something inside me. They were so much more than uncles, but I hadn't found the courage to tell her yet. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that she has 4 fathers instead of 1? You're in the best pack in the world, sweetheart, I said, instead kissing her forehead. The hospital had created a special play area for pediatric oncology patients. A bright, cheerful space designed to give sick children a taste of normalcy. While Della was there under a nurse's supervision playing with building blocks and chattering with other kids, I got summoned to Katie's temporary office. He'd actually set up a workspace in the hospital. A sleek glass desk, minimalist furniture, state-of-the-art laptop. It was so distinctly Kay that I almost laughed. Almost. But the serious expression on his face when I entered killed any humor I might have felt. Sit down, Colin. It wasn't a request. I sat, my stomach already knotting with anxiety. Is something wrong with Della's treatment? Did Dr. Morrison find something? Della's treatment is progressing well. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. This is about something else. We need to discuss custody arrangements. The word hit me like a physical blow. Custody? Legal custody. he clarified, his tone businesslike in that way that made me feel like I was in a boardroom instead of having a conversation about my daughter. We want official rights. Shared custody, proper documentation, everything formalized. Della deserves to have all 4 of us legally recognized in her life. She's been mine for 4 years. My voice came out smaller than I intended. I've raised her alone. The door opened and Shane walked in, followed by Troy and Brock. Of course. They'd planned this ambush together, and you kept her from us for 4 years. Shane said, his analytical gaze fixed on me. You can't use your solo parenthood as a shield when it was your choice to keep us in the dark. The words stung worse because they were true. I'm not trying to be a victim here. I'm her father. I've fed her, bathed her, stayed up with her through nightmares and fevers. I've been there for everything. By your own design. Brock's voice was rough, edged with barely contained emotion. We would have been there too if you'd given us the chance. You made that decision without consulting any of us. Tears blurred my vision. I hated crying in front of them, hated showing weakness, but the words kept pouring out. I was terrified. You'd reject her or think I was trying to trap you. I'm an Omega who had a one-night arrangement with 4 wealthy alphas. How was that ever going to end well? Stop. Troy dropped to his knees in front of my chair, his hands gentle as they covered mine. Stop diminishing yourself. You're not just anything, Colin. You're Della's father. You're the person who kept her alive and loved when we didn't even know she existed. And he paused, seeming to struggle with the words. You're ours. You always have been. My breath caught. What are you talking about? Shane moved closer, his usual cold demeanor cracking to show something vulnerable underneath. That bond we felt 4 years ago? It never faded. We tried to convince ourselves it was just biology, just the heat and the moan. But it wasn't. We couldn't move on, couldn't forget you. Every Omega we met after that night felt wrong. Kate admitted, his voice low. Every date, every attempt at a relationship, nothing worked because they weren't you. And now we find out we have a daughter together, that you've been raising our child alone. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. We can't change the past, but we want to be part of the future. Yours and Della's. Brock's hand settled on my shoulder, warm and steady. We're not trying to take her away from you. We're asking you to let us in. To let us be a family, all of us. I looked at each of them in turn. Cade with his controlled intensity. Shane with his careful logic barely masking deeper feelings. Troy still kneeling before me, earnest and open. Brock standing solid and protective. They meant it. They actually meant it. I don't want to lose her, I whispered. You won't, Troy promised. We want to add to her life, not subtract from it. You'll always be her primary parent. We just want the chance to be there too. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from the play area supervisor. Della is asking for you. Nothing urgent, she just wants her daddy. I stood grateful for the interruption even as my mind spun with everything they'd said. I need to go to her. We know, Kate said softly. Take your time. We'll be here when you're ready to talk more. As I walked back to the play area, I could feel their eyes on me. The weight of their attention, their expectations, their genuine desire to be part of our lives. It was overwhelming and terrifying and maybe exactly what Della and I needed. When I reached the play area, Della was sitting in a corner with her stuffed wolf, looking tired but content. She brightened when she saw me. Daddy, I built a tower this tall. She gestured wildly with her hands, clearly exaggerating. That's amazing, baby. I sat beside her, pulling her onto my lap. She fit perfectly there, like she always had. How are you feeling? Sleepy, she admitted, resting her head against my chest. But happy. Uncle Brock said he'd read me a story tonight about a princess and dragons. Did he now? And Uncle Shane said he'd help me color tomorrow, and Uncle Troy promised pancakes for breakfast if I'm good during my medicine time. She yawned. They're really nice, Daddy. I'm glad they're here. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in her little girl scent mixed with hospital antiseptic. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. And as I sat there holding my daughter, I realized that maybe the 4 alphas who'd walked back into my life weren't trying to take anything from me. Maybe they were trying to give us something we'd been missing all along. A complete family. The thought was still scary, still uncertain, but for the first time since I'd sent that desperate text message, I let myself consider the possibility that this might actually work. Della fell asleep in my arms, her small body relaxed and trusting. Whatever happened next, whatever decisions we made about custody and family and the future, I knew one thing for certain. My daughter was loved. By me and now by 4 alphas who were determined to make up for lost time. That had to count for something. The transition to Cade's penthouse happened faster than I expected. One day we were in the hospital. The next we were being driven through the city in a car that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire life. Della pressed her face against the window, eyes wide as we pulled up to a building so tall I had to crane my neck to see the top. "We're going to live here?" Her voice was full of wonder. "For now," I said, still not entirely sure how I'd agreed to this. "While you finish your treatment." The penthouse was excessive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. An open-concept living space that could fit 3 of our old apartment inside it. Bedrooms that were bigger than some people's entire homes. But what got me was Della's room. They decorated it before we arrived. Lavender walls because somehow they'd discovered her favorite color, a canopy bed with gauzy curtains. Shelves already filled with books and toys. "Is this really mine?" Della whispered, clutching Mr. Hoppy tighter. "All yours, princess." Cade appeared in the doorway and I saw his expression soften as he watched her explore. "Do you like it?" She nodded, too overwhelmed for words, then ran to hug his legs. He froze for a moment before carefully patting her back, clearly unused to such spontaneous affection. The first week was an adjustment. Troy took over breakfast duties, appearing in the kitchen each morning to make elaborate pancakes decorated with chocolate chip smiley faces. Shane helped Della with her coloring books, treating them with the same seriousness he probably gave to corporate presentations. Brock read bedtime stories in his deep, soothing voice that had her asleep within minutes. And Kate orchestrated everything from the background appointments scheduled, medications organized, healthy meals planned. But at night, after Della was asleep, the energy in the penthouse shifted. I'd been feeling it for days now, the telltale signs of an approaching heat. My temperature fluctuated. My scent changed, becoming sweeter, more enticing. My skin grew sensitive to even the slightest touch. And the 4 alphas? They noticed everything. Their own scents intensified, filling the space with cedar and smoke and pine and leather until I could barely think straight. They watched me with barely restrained hunger, but they kept their distance, waiting for something. It was past midnight when I gave up on sleep and padded to the kitchen for water. The cool marble floor felt good against my bare feet, grounding me when everything else felt like it was spinning out of control. "Trouble sleeping?" I jumped, nearly dropping my glass. Shane stood in the doorway, shirtless, wearing only loose sweatpants that hung low on his hips. His hair was messed up from sleep, making him look younger, less intimidating. "Just thirsty," I managed, trying not to stare at his chest. He moved closer, each step deliberate, until he had me backed against the counter. His hands gripped the marble on either side of me, caging me in. "Your scent is different tonight. Stronger." My pulse raced. "I don't know what you mean, liar." His nose brushed against my neck, just above where my pulse hammered. "Your heat is coming. We can all feel it building." Before I could form a response, Troy appeared in the kitchen doorway. Then Kate emerged from the hallway. Finally Brock, all 4 of them surrounding me but not touching, like they were waiting for permission I hadn't given. "We won't force you," Cade said, his voice strained with the effort of control. "But if your heat breaks, we want to be here for you. The way we should have been men years ago." My body was already responding to their proximity, slick beginning to form, my scent sweetening helplessly. "I'm scared," I admitted, the words barely audible. "What if it changes things? What if—" "Nothing will change except you'll finally be ours completely." Troy's hand cupped my face, his thumb gentle against my cheek. "We'll take care of you. We promise. No more running, no more abandonment. We're here to stay." The heat hit fully 3 hours later. I barely made it to my bedroom before the fever spiked, before the need became overwhelming. They came to me then, all 4 of them, and kept every promise they'd made. Troy was gentle, murmuring reassurances against my skin. Shane was controlled precision, knowing exactly what I needed before I could ask. Brock was solid and grounding, anchoring me when everything felt too intense. And Cade was possessive devotion, claiming me thoroughly while somehow making me feel cherished. When it was over, When the heat finally broke and coherent thought returned, I was marked. Bite marks on my neck, my wrists, my inner thighs, each one a claim, a promise, a permanent reminder that I belonged to them as much as they belonged to me. The pack bond we'd started 4 years ago was finally complete. I touched the mark on my neck, feeling the raised skin, the permanence of it. What happens now? Now we're a family, Cade said simply, pulling me against his chest while the others arranged themselves around us on the oversized bed. Officially, legally, completely. Della will need to know, I said softly. She can't keep calling you uncle when you're her father's. We'll tell her together, Troy agreed, his hand finding mine. When she's strong enough, when the time is right. Brock pressed a kiss to my shoulder, right above one of his marks. No rush. We have all the time in the world now. And lying there, surrounded by 4 alphas who'd claimed me completely, bonded to them in ways that couldn't be undone, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 4 years. Safe. Not just physically protected, but emotionally secure in the knowledge that they weren't going anywhere. Shane's hand traced idle patterns on my hip. Sleep, Colin. We've got you. So I did, falling into the deepest, most peaceful sleep I'd had since the night Della was conceived. Because for the first time since that morning I'd woken up alone. I knew with absolute certainty that when I opened my eyes again, they'd still be there. We'd still be together. We'd still be a pack. 6 months changed everything. Della's hair grew back in soft dark curls that framed her face like a halo. The hollow look left her cheeks, replaced by healthy pink color and the kind of energy only a 5-year-old could possess. Her latest scans came back clean. Completely clean. The word remission had never sounded so beautiful. I cried when Dr. Morrison gave us the news, right there in his office with all 4 alphas and Della watching. Happy tears this time, relief and joy so overwhelming I couldn't contain it. Cade pulled me into his arms while Shane gripped my shoulder. Troy held Della and Brock stood guard over all of us like he was physically protecting our happiness from anything that might threaten it. Does this mean I'm all better? Della asked, her gray eyes my eyes wide with hope. It means you're winning, Troy told her, voice thick with emotion. You're beating it, princess. We decided that night that it was time. Time to stop hiding behind the word uncle. Time to give Della the full truth about her family. The living room had become our gathering space. The place where we came together every evening. Della sat in the center of the couch, looking small and curious, while the rest of us arranged ourselves around her. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs. Sweetheart, we need to talk to you about something important. I started, my voice only shaking a little. She immediately looked worried. Is the sickness coming back? No, baby. Nothing like that. I took her small hand in mine. This is about your family. About who we are to you. Troy knelt in front of her, meeting her at eye level the way he always did when he had something important to say. You know how some kids have a mommy and a daddy? She nodded. Well, you have something different. Something special. He glanced at me and I nodded encouragement. Colin is your daddy. Absolutely. But Cade, Shane, Brock and me? We're your daddies too. All 4 of us. You have 5 dads who love you more than anything in the world. I watched the information process across her face. Confusion, then understanding, then something that looked like excitement. You mean, I have 4 extra daddies? Cade smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his usually stern face. Yes, princess. 4. That's so cool. She bounced on the couch, her earlier worry completely forgotten. Wait until I tell Emma. She only has 2 dads, and I have 5. The tension broke, all of us laughing with relief and joy. Shane ruffled her hair affectionately. You're taking this remarkably well. Well, duh. She rolled her eyes in that way kids do when adults are being particularly dense. I already knew you loved me. This just makes it official. Right? Out of the mouths of babes. Life developed a rhythm after that. Della started kindergarten, excited to learn and make friends. Shane handled morning drop-offs, arriving at the school in his expensive car and making all the other parents stare. Troy did pickups, always ready with a snack and questions about her day. Brock helped with the few homework assignments kindergartners got, approaching simple addition with the same focus he probably gave to business deals. And Cade showed up to every school event, glared at any boy who looked at Della too long despite her being only 5, and somehow became president of the PTA within 2 months. I'd found work I actually enjoyed, a remote position doing graphic design that let me be home when Della needed me, but also gave me back some independence, some sense of self beyond being an omega or a father. We were happy, genuinely, surprisingly happy. One evening, all 6 of us gathered around the dining table, something that had become sacred, our time to reconnect after busy days. Della was chattering about her friend Emma's new baby brother, describing him in the dramatic detail only a 5-year-old could manage. And he's so tiny. Like this. She held her hands close together. Emma gets to help feed him and everything. It's so cool. Babies are a lot of work, I said, spearing a piece of chicken. Emma's mommies probably don't sleep much anymore. Della was quiet for a moment, pushing peas around her plate. Then, Daddy Colin? Yes, baby. Could I maybe have a little brother or sister? Emma says having a sibling is the best thing ever. I choked on my water, coughing so hard my eyes watered. When I looked up, all 4 alphas had frozen mid-motion, forks suspended in air, eyes locked on me with identical expressions of predatory interest. Well, Cade said slowly, a dangerous smirk playing at his lips. That's certainly something we could arrange. Shane's grin was wicked, eyes gleaming with mischief. We have been discussing pack expansion. It seems like the natural next step. Under the table, Troy's hand found my thigh, squeezing possessively. What do you think, Colin? Should we give Della what she's asking for? Brock just chuckled, the deep sound vibrating through the room and straight down my spine. I think that's an excellent idea, Princess. My face burned hot enough to cook eggs on. Can we maybe discuss this when certain small people aren't listening? Why? I want to know. Della bounced in her seat. Can I have a baby sibling? Please? The 4 alphas were still watching me, waiting for my answer, and I could see in their eyes that they were absolutely serious. They wanted this. Wanted to expand our family, to give Della a sibling, to bind us together even more permanently than we already were. And the thing was, I wanted it too. Somewhere in the last 6 months, this had stopped being a temporary arrangement or a necessity for Della's care. This had become home. They had become mine as surely as I'd become theirs. Maybe, I whispered, unable to keep the smile off my face. Maybe soon. Della cheered, clapping her hands. Yes. I'm going to be the best big sister ever. The alphas exchanged loaded glances, and I knew I'd just agreed to something that would probably happen much sooner than maybe soon. But I found I didn't mind. After dinner, Della fell asleep on the couch during movie time. Exhausted from excitement, Cade carried her to bed while the rest of us cleaned up. When he returned, all 4 of them surrounded me in the kitchen, their combined presence overwhelming in the best way. You meant it? Troy asked quietly. About expanding the family? I looked at each of them, these 4 alphas who'd walked back into my life and turned everything upside down in the best possible way. Who loved my daughter fiercely. Who'd bonded with me completely. Who'd become my pack, my family, my everything. I meant it, I confirmed. But on one condition, anything Brock promised. We do this together. All of us. No more secrets. No more running. No more fear. We're a pack, which means we face everything as a team. Shane pulled me close, kissing my temple. And as they led me to the bedroom we all shared now, as they showed me exactly how enthusiastically they planned to fulfill Della's wish for a sibling, I marveled at how much had changed in 6 months. I'd started this journey desperate and alone, reaching out to 4 alphas who I thought had forgotten me. Instead, I'd found a family, found home, found love in its most complicated, beautiful, unconventional form. Our story was just beginning, but this time we'd write it together, forever.